A neighbor's Ring camera captured something that nobody was looking for. Not at Nancy Guthrie's home, where the FBI doorbell footage showed the masked suspect. Not on her street, where investigators had been searching for weeks. But 2.5 miles away on a back road that normally sees almost no traffic at night. A street-facing camera pointed at a quiet residential area in the Catalina foothills, and between 12:30 in the morning and 6 a.m. on February 1st, during the exact window when Nancy Guthrie was taken from her home, that camera recorded 12 vehicles driving past. 12 cars on a back road away from major intersections in a neighborhood where residents say nighttime traffic is rare. 12 vehicles during a 6-hour window that corresponds precisely to when investigators believe Nancy was abducted. And the video, obtained by Fox News Digital on February 26th and now being analyzed by everyone trying to understand what happened that night, raises questions that investigators are working to answer. Were any of these vehicles on Nancy's street? Did any of them pass by more than once, creating a pattern of repeated presence? Was the person who took Nancy driving one of these cars either before or after the crime, using back roads to avoid main streets where more cameras might capture them? Now, the Fox News article states it is not clear if any vehicle drove past the house more than once. But that raises the critical question that investigators would immediately ask. Were any of these 12 vehicles the same vehicle appearing multiple times? The published edited footage may not show enough detail for the public to make that determination. But investigators with access to the full unedited footage would analyze exactly that question. Because if one car passed at 12:30 a.m., left the frame, and then the same car with the same license plate or distinctive features reappeared at 2:45 a.m., and again at 4:15 a.m., that pattern of circling back, of repeated presence, would be far more significant than 12 different vehicles passing once each. The footage does not answer those questions definitively. The camera is 2.5 miles from Nancy's home, roughly a 7-minute drive according to Fox News. The video shows vehicles passing the neighbor's property, but does not confirm whether those vehicles were anywhere near Nancy's address. Fox News explicitly states in their reporting that it is unclear if any of these vehicles had been on Guthrie's street. That is an important caveat. This is not footage from Nancy's street. This is footage from a back road in the same general area of the Catalina foothills neighborhood. But what the footage does show is unusual traffic volume on a road that is normally quiet during those hours. And that unusual volume during the precise time frame of a kidnapping is the kind of pattern that investigations build on. The kind of anomaly that generates leads. The kind of data point that, when combined with other evidence, can help identify suspects or eliminate innocent explanations. Traffic patterns matter. Anomalies matter. Vehicles in unexpected places at critical times matter. Not because any single vehicle in this footage is definitively connected to the crime, but because these are threads worth pulling to see where they lead. If you want to understand what this new footage actually shows, what it tells us about traffic patterns in the area during the critical hours, why investigators care about vehicles on back roads even if they were not confirmed to be on the victim's street, how video enhancement and vehicle tracking work in modern investigations, and how this footage fits into the broader investigation that now spans 26 days since Nancy disappeared, then subscribe to True Crime Vault right now. This channel breaks down evidence systematically, explains what it means without exaggeration or sensationalism, and follows investigations through to resolution with factual accuracy. Hit that subscribe button and turn on all notifications, because this case is developing, and when investigators identify vehicles from this footage or from other cameras in the area, you want to understand how that identification happened and what evidence supported it. Hit the like button as well, because detailed analysis of new evidence deserves to reach everyone following this case and everyone interested in understanding how modern investigations actually work. And comment below telling us whether you think any of these 12 vehicles might be connected to Nancy's abduction, or whether this is coincidental traffic unrelated to the crime. We want to hear your reasoning and your analysis. Now let us examine exactly what the neighbor's camera captured, what the Fox News reporting actually says versus what it does not say, what investigators look for in this type of footage, and what other details have emerged as this investigation enters what the FBI is describing as a new phase. The neighbor who provided the Ring camera footage to Fox News Digital lives in the Catalina foothills neighborhood on a property that multiple sources in the Fox News article describe as sitting on a back road away from major intersections. Understanding what a back road means in the context of residential neighborhoods is important for assessing the significance of this footage. Back roads in residential areas are not through streets. They are not routes that connect point A to point B efficiently. They are smaller streets that wind through residential subdivisions without connecting directly to main arteries or major intersections. They serve primarily the homes on those specific streets. During daytime hours, back roads see predictable traffic. Residents leaving for work or returning home, delivery vehicles bringing packages or mail, service vehicles for landscaping, pool maintenance, repairs, visitors coming to see people who live on that street. But during overnight hours, especially between midnight and 6 a.m., traffic on residential back roads typically drops to nearly zero. Residents are home asleep. There are no scheduled deliveries. Service calls are rare. There is simply no reason for vehicles to be on those streets unless someone lives there, is visiting someone who lives there, or has a specific purpose for being there. That is the normal baseline pattern for back roads in quiet neighborhoods, and that is why 12 vehicles passing a single point on such a road during a 6-hour overnight window is unusual enough to warrant attention and analysis. The neighbor's camera, positioned to face the street as many Ring doorbell cameras and security cameras are, recorded those vehicles with timestamps showing when each one passed. Fox News obtained the footage from the neighbor and published an edited version showing the 12 vehicles at their respective times throughout the early morning hours of February 1st, 2026. The first vehicle appears in the footage at 12:30 a.m., 30 minutes after midnight on February 1st. To put this in timeline context, Nancy was dropped off at her home by her son-in-law Tommaso Cioni at 9:48 p.m. on January 31st. Her garage door closed at 9:50 p.m. Between that time and 12:30 a.m. when the first vehicle appears on this back road footage, approximately 2 hours and 40 minutes elapsed. Nancy would have been home for that entire period. The house would have been quiet. The neighborhood would have been quiet. And then at 12:30 a.m., the first vehicle passes this camera 2.5 miles away. This first vehicle appears 90 minutes before Nancy's doorbell camera disconnected at 1:47 a.m. If this vehicle or any subsequent vehicle in the footage was involved in surveillance or planning or any aspect of the crime, 12:30 a.m. represents a potential time frame for pre-crime reconnaissance. Someone driving through the area to verify conditions, to check for unusual activity, to ensure the approach is clear, to observe the neighborhood in the late night hours when they plan to act. That is one possible interpretation. Another interpretation is that this vehicle and some or all of the others belong to residents of that back road or visitors to that back road and have no connection whatsoever to what happened at Nancy's home. Additional vehicles pass at various times throughout the early morning hours according to the timestamps visible in the edited Fox News video. The footage shows cars moving through the frame, some appearing to be sedans based on their silhouette, some possibly SUVs or trucks, though the nighttime ring camera quality and the distance from which the vehicles are captured make precise identification of makes and models difficult without professional enhancement. Each vehicle is time-stamped. Each represents someone who was driving on that specific back road during the hours when Nancy was taken from her home 2.5 miles away. The video continues through the critical window that investigators have identified. At 1:47 a.m., the moment when Nancy's doorbell camera was disabled by the masked suspect visible in the FBI footage released on February 10th, vehicles were moving through the area captured by this neighbor's camera. We do not know from the Fox News reporting whether a vehicle passed at exactly 1:47 or close to that time. The edited video published by Fox News shows 12 vehicles across the 6-hour period, but does not necessarily show every timestamp. It is possible vehicles passed at times not shown in the edited version. Or it is possible the 12 shown are the complete count, and their timestamps are distributed across the 6 hours without perfect alignment to the critical moments of the crime. At 2:12 a.m., when motion was detected on another camera somewhere on Nancy's property but no video was recorded because recording capability had been compromised, vehicles continued to move through the area captured by the back road camera. Again, we do not know if a specific vehicle passed at 2:12. We know from Fox News that 12 vehicles passed between 12:30 a.m. and 6 a.m. The distribution of those 12 across that time frame is information that investigators would have from the full unedited footage, but that we, as the public, do not have from the edited version that was published. At 2:28 a.m., when Nancy's pacemaker monitoring application disconnected from her phone, indicating she was no longer in proximity to the phone, which was later found inside the house, the back road camera was still recording and traffic was still being captured within the overall 6-hour window. The 2:28 a.m. timestamp has become one of the most significant data points in this investigation because it likely represents the moment when Nancy was removed from her home or moved to a location far enough from her phone that the Bluetooth or near-field connection maintaining the pacemaker app link was broken. And vehicles continued passing through the camera's view through 6 a.m. according to Fox News reporting, well after the immediate crime, but potentially during a time frame when someone who took Nancy would be leaving the area, would be driving away from the Catalina foothills with her, would be using back roads to avoid main streets and major intersections where traffic cameras and police patrol. Routes are more concentrated and where there would be higher risk of being noticed or captured on camera or encountering law enforcement. Before I continue deeper into analysis, let me be very clear about what Fox News reported versus what they did not report, because accuracy and honesty about what we actually know is essential. The Fox News article published on February 26th states that it is unclear if any of the vehicles had been on Guthrie Street. That is a direct quote from their reporting. They are explicitly saying they do not know and cannot confirm whether any of these 12 vehicles were on Nancy's street. The camera that captured them is 2.5 miles away on a different back road. The mere presence of a vehicle in this footage does not establish that the vehicle was near Nancy's home. Fox News also states that it is not clear if any vehicle drove past the house more than once that night. Again, a direct acknowledgement of uncertainty. They are not claiming that analysis of the footage showed repeated passes by the same vehicle. They are saying they do not know whether that occurred. The published edited video may not show enough detail or enough of the complete footage for that determination to be made publicly, or Fox News may not have done that analysis, or the analysis may be inconclusive based on the available footage quality. These caveats matter enormously. A responsible analysis of this footage must acknowledge what is known and what is not known. What is known: 12 vehicles passed this camera on a back road between 12:30 a.m. and 6 a.m. on February 1st. What is not known: whether any of those vehicles were on Nancy's street, whether any passed multiple times, whether any have any connection to the crime. Both the known facts and the unknown questions are important for understanding what this evidence potentially represents. Now let us think carefully and systematically about what investigators can and will do with this footage, and why even footage from a location that is not the crime scene can have investigative value. Modern vehicle tracking and investigation involves multiple techniques and methodologies that can potentially turn anonymous vehicles captured in nighttime security camera footage into identified suspects with names and addresses and backgrounds that can be investigated. Let me walk through those techniques. First, video enhancement. The Ring camera footage as originally captured has a certain resolution and quality determined by the camera's specifications, the lighting conditions, the distance from camera to subject, and various other technical factors. Nighttime footage from residential security cameras is typically lower quality than daytime footage because there is less available light and because many cameras switch to infrared or night vision modes that produce different image characteristics. But video enhancement techniques can often improve that quality significantly beyond what is visible in the raw footage. Digital forensic specialists use sophisticated software to process footage frame by frame. They can sharpen images to bring out details that appear blurry in the original. They can adjust contrast to make features more distinguishable from background. They can enhance specific areas of frames where important details like license plates are located. They can reduce noise and improve clarity. And perhaps most importantly, they can combine information from multiple frames, showing the same object from slightly different positions or angles to create composite enhanced images that contain more detail than any single frame. License plates are the single most valuable target for enhancement in vehicle footage because a readable license plate leads directly to vehicle registration records and the owner's identity. Even if a plate is not clearly readable in the original footage straight from the camera, enhancement can sometimes make it readable. Algorithms can analyze multiple frames, showing the same plate as the vehicle moves through the camera's field of view, and can combine the partial information visible in each frame to reconstruct what the complete plate says. If even a partial plate number can be extracted, like 3 or 4 characters out of 6 or 7, That significantly narrows the search when combined with other information about the vehicle. If a full plate can be read through enhancement, that leads directly and definitively to vehicle registration records maintained by the State Department of Motor Vehicles. Those records show who owns the vehicle, where they live, when they registered it, what make and model and year it is, and various other details. A license plate is essentially a direct connection from an anonymous vehicle captured on camera to a named individual who can be investigated. But even without readable plates, vehicles can sometimes be identified through other characteristics visible in footage. Make and model can often be determined from body shape, proportions, and distinctive features, even in relatively low-resolution footage. Automotive experts and investigators familiar with vehicle identification can look at the general silhouette and specific details like headlight configuration, grille design, window shape, roofline, and dozens of other features and narrow the possibilities to specific makes and models. Year range can sometimes be estimated from design details because manufacturers change designs over time, and those changes are documented. Color can be determined from footage, though nighttime and infrared footage can affect color accuracy, and in some cases, colors appear different than they would in daylight. Distinctive features like roof racks, window decals, bumper stickers, custom wheels, damage or bodywork, anything that makes a specific vehicle unique, rather than just another example of a common make and model, can help narrow identification when combined with other information. Take a moment right now to make sure you are subscribed to True Crime Vault and that notifications are turned on. This investigation is active and developing. When vehicle identifications happen, when any of these investigative threads produces results, when arrests are made, you want to be here to understand how it happened. Hit that like button. Visit our channel to see our complete coverage of this case, and comment below with your thoughts. Now let me continue explaining how investigators can potentially track vehicles even when initial footage does not provide complete information. Investigators can also correlate this back road footage with other camera systems in the area. This is critical to understand. No single camera tells a complete story, but multiple cameras create a network that can track movement through an area. If any of the 12 vehicles visible in this back road footage also appear on other neighbors' cameras elsewhere in the Catalina foothills, that creates a route map. That shows where the vehicle came from, where it went, what path it traveled through the neighborhood. If a vehicle passes the back road camera at 2:15 a.m. and also appears on another neighbor's camera 2 miles away at 2:20 a.m. and appears on a third camera on a street closer to Nancy's home at 2:25 a.m., that sequence places that vehicle moving through the area during the critical time frame and approaching the victim's location. That pattern transforms a vehicle that was captured 2.5 miles away into a vehicle whose route brought it progressively closer to the crime scene during the relevant time window. Multiple camera systems combined create what amounts to a tracking network that can follow vehicles through neighborhoods, even when no single camera shows the complete route. The Catalina foothills is described in various reporting as an affluent area. Affluent residential areas typically have higher rates of home security system adoption. Many homes have video doorbells, driveway cameras, street-facing cameras. Each one captures vehicles passing within its field of view. Each one has timestamps, and collectively they create a database of vehicle movements through the neighborhood. Investigators working this case have requested, since the early days of the investigation, that neighbors check their camera systems for footage from the night of February 1st and provide any footage they have. The Pima County Sheriff's Department and the FBI made public appeals for this footage. Some neighbors have responded. The 12-car video from this back road neighbor is one example of residents cooperating with those requests and providing footage to investigators, and in some cases to media organizations like Fox News. Other cameras in the area that neighbors have not chosen to share publicly may have been provided directly to investigators. Those cameras may have captured some of the same 12 vehicles from different angles or at different times or in different locations, providing additional pieces of a puzzle that investigators can assemble. We do not know how many total cameras investigators have collected footage from. We do not know how many vehicles have been captured across all of those cameras. We know about these 12 vehicles on this back road because this neighbor shared footage with Fox News, and Fox News published it. But the investigative picture is almost certainly much more comprehensive than what has been made public. Additionally, automated license plate readers, commonly called ALPRs, if any exist in the area or on roads leading into and out of the Catalina foothills, create another data source that investigators can access. ALPRs are specialized cameras designed specifically to capture and record license plates of passing vehicles automatically. They use optical character recognition technology to read the plates and convert them to text that can be stored in searchable databases. ALPRs are used by law enforcement agencies for various purposes, including traffic enforcement, stolen vehicle recovery, and investigation of crimes. They are also used by private companies for parking management, toll collection, and vehicle repossession. The cameras are typically mounted at fixed locations like intersections, highway on-ramps and off-ramps, parking garage entrances, or toll plazas. Every vehicle that passes is photographed. The license plate is read automatically, and the database logs the plate number, the timestamp, the location, and often the direction of travel. These databases can be queried by investigators. If ALPRs exist on any roads that provide access to or exit from the Catalina foothills neighborhood, their databases could show which vehicles entered or left the area during the overnight hours of February 1st. Investigators can query with the time frame, say between midnight and 6 a.m., and the location, and receive a list of every plate that was captured by ALPRs in that area during that period. They can then cross-reference that list against databases of residents of the neighborhood. If a vehicle's registered address is within the Catalina foothills, that provides an innocent explanation for why it was in the area. It was going home or leaving home. But any vehicle that appears in ALPR data, meaning it entered or exited the area, but does not have a registered address in the neighborhood, becomes more interesting because there is no immediately obvious innocent explanation for its presence. And any vehicle that appears multiple times in ALPR data during the same night, entering and leaving and entering again, creates a pattern that is much harder to explain through innocent activity. Why would you drive into a neighborhood, leave, and come back multiple times during the same overnight period unless you were conducting surveillance, checking on something, returning to a location repeatedly for a specific purpose? That pattern warrants investigation. Now let me explain in detail why the fact that this is a back road rather than a main street matters so much for understanding the potential significance of this footage and the traffic pattern it captures. When investigators analyze traffic patterns in the context of a crime, they are looking for anomalies. They are looking for deviations from the normal expected baseline. To identify an anomaly, you first have to understand what normal looks like for that specific location and that specific time frame. Normal traffic on a main street at 2 a.m. in a metropolitan area might be dozens of vehicles per hour even during overnight hours. Main streets are through routes. They connect neighborhoods to commercial areas, to highways, to other parts of the city. People use them to commute to night shifts at hospitals, factories, warehouses, call centers, and other businesses that operate overnight. People use them to return home from bars, restaurants, entertainment venues, social gatherings. Emergency vehicles use them to respond to calls. Delivery trucks use them for overnight logistics. Rideshare vehicles use them to transport passengers. Even at 2 a.m., main streets have baseline traffic. That baseline varies by location and by day of week and by season, but it exists. So seeing vehicles on a main street at 2 a.m. is not inherently unusual. It is expected. It is normal. For an investigator to consider traffic on a main street anomalous during overnight hours, it would have to be significantly higher than the established baseline. Not just some traffic, but noticeably excessive traffic that suggests something unusual is happening. But back roads in residential neighborhoods have a completely different traffic profile. Normal traffic on a back road at 2 a.m. is close to zero. These roads do not connect to anywhere except the homes on that specific street. They are not through routes. They are not used by anyone except people who live there, people visiting someone who lives there, or people who are lost. During overnight hours when residents are asleep and when visitors would not typically be coming or going, there is simply no reason for vehicles to be on back roads. So the baseline expectation for a back road in a quiet residential neighborhood between midnight and 6 a.m. is approximately 0 vehicles, or very close to 0. Perhaps a resident who works a night shift leaving for work or returning home. Perhaps someone returning from a late event. But these would be isolated individual vehicles, not continuous traffic. 12 vehicles during 6 hours on a road where the baseline is near 0 is a significant deviation. It is more traffic than the normal pattern would predict or explain. That does not automatically mean the 12 vehicles are connected to a crime. Anomalies can have innocent explanations. Perhaps several residents of that specific back road happened to have reasons to be coming or going during those hours for various unrelated purposes. Perhaps there was an event or gathering at a home on that street that resulted in multiple vehicles arriving or departing during that time frame. Perhaps it was simply statistical variance where by random chance more vehicles than usual happened to be present that night. All of those are possible. But the anomaly has to be investigated and explained. You cannot assume it is innocent. You cannot dismiss it as coincidence when it occurs during the exact time frame of a serious crime in the same general area. Investigators have to examine it, have to attempt to identify the vehicles, have to determine who was driving them and why they were there, and then make assessments based on that information about whether any of the vehicles are connected to the crime or whether they all have innocent explanations. The neighbor who provided this footage to Fox News presumably lives on that back road or at least has their camera positioned to monitor that back road. That neighbor's experience and assessment of what is normal traffic on that road is valuable context. If that neighbor tells investigators or tells reporters that in their experience living there or monitoring that road, seeing 12 vehicles between midnight and 6 a.m. is highly unusual, that it is far more traffic than they typically see during those hours, then that assessment from someone with direct knowledge of the local patterns carries significant weight. Fox News describes the property where the camera is located as sitting on a back road away from major intersections and notes that it is about 2.5 miles away from Nancy's home. The straight line distance, meaning if you drew a line directly from one point to the other on a map, is 2.5 miles. The actual driving distance via roads, following streets and turns rather than going straight through properties, would be somewhat longer than the straight line distance. Fox News states it is roughly a 7-minute drive, which suggests an actual road distance of perhaps 3 to 4 miles, depending on speed limits, traffic conditions if any existed, and the specific route taken. 7 minutes is not far in terms of driving time. It is close. It is within the same general area of the Catalina foothills, and that proximity is why investigators would be interested in traffic on this back road even though it is not Nancy's street. If you commit a crime at one location and you want to leave the area, and if you are thinking tactically about avoiding main streets where you are more likely to be seen or captured on traffic cameras, you might deliberately choose routes that use back roads to move through the neighborhood without creating a visible trail on major thoroughfares. If Nancy was taken at approximately 2:28 a.m. based on when her pacemaker app disconnected, and you are driving away from her location using back roads to avoid main streets, you could easily be on a back road that is 2.5 miles away within 10 to 15 minutes of leaving her property. If a vehicle appears on this back road at 2:40 a.m. or 2:45 a.m., that 12 to 17-minute gap is completely consistent with the timeline of leaving the crime scene and driving through the neighborhood on back roads to reach this location. I want to be absolutely clear that I am not stating any specific vehicle in this footage is connected to the crime. I am explaining the investigative logic for why vehicles on back roads within a reasonable distance during the relevant time frame are worth examining and investigating. They might be connected. They also might not be connected. But the possibility exists, and that possibility requires investigation. That is how responsible detective work functions. You investigate possibilities, you follow leads, you gather information, and then you make determinations based on evidence rather than assumptions. Subscribe to True Crime Vault if you have not already. Turn on all notifications so you are immediately alerted when we post new coverage of developments in this case. Like this video because your engagement helps this content reach more people who want serious factual analysis. Visit our channel to see our other videos on this case, including our comprehensive breakdowns of the doorbell camera footage, the Google search timeline analysis, the DNA evidence from the glove, and every other major development. Comment below with your assessment. Do you think the traffic pattern on this back road is significant, or do you think it is coincidental traffic unrelated to the crime? What would you investigate if you were working this case? We want to hear thoughtful analysis from our viewers. Now let me continue examining what else Fox News reported in this article and what it tells us about the current state of the investigation. In addition to the new Ring camera footage showing 12 vehicles on the back road, the Fox News article published on February 26th provides several other significant details about the investigation, about observations from people who live in Nancy's neighborhood, and about the current status and phase of the investigative effort. These details collectively paint a picture of an investigation that has shifted from intensive fieldwork to analytical and laboratory work, while investigators process evidence and follow up on leads developed during the initial weeks. First significant detail. Neighbors in Nancy's community reported seeing a suspicious man walking near her home in the weeks leading up to her disappearance. One specific neighbor, identified in the article as Aldine Meister, spoke to Fox News Digital and provided a description of this individual and her observations about why he struck her as suspicious and out of place. Her statement is worth examining in detail because witness observations like this provide context and potential investigative leads even when they do not directly solve cases. Aldine Meister told Fox News that the man she saw did not have typical walking gear on. This observation suggests she is familiar with what people in her neighborhood typically wear when they are out for recreational walks. In residential areas, people who walk for exercise typically wear athletic shoes, comfortable clothing appropriate for the weather, sometimes hats or sunglasses, items that signal they are engaged in exercise or recreation. This man's clothing apparently did not fit that pattern. He was dressed in a way that did not match the expected appearance of someone out for a walk. Meister also noted that he had his hat pulled really far over his eyes. This is a specific detail about deliberate positioning of clothing to obscure facial features. People normally wear hats for sun protection or warmth, and while hats naturally shade the face to some degree, pulling a hat far down over the eyes goes beyond normal wear. It suggests intentional effort to hide the face, to make it difficult for someone looking at you to see your features clearly. That behavior causes people to notice and to feel that something is off. Meister described the man as kind of younger, suggesting he appeared to be perhaps in his 20s, 30s, or 40s rather than elderly. Age range matters in witness descriptions because it helps narrow who investigators should be looking for. And critically, Meister assessed that he just did not look like he was going out for a walk. Despite being on foot in a neighborhood where people do walk for recreation, something about his appearance, his behavior, his demeanor, did not fit the pattern of normal recreational walking. Her final assessment was that he just did not fit. He did not fit the neighborhood. He did not fit what she would expect to see. He stood out as anomalous. This is exactly the kind of observation that investigators want to hear about because crimes, especially planned crimes, often involve surveillance periods where perpetrators scout locations in advance. You cannot conduct that surveillance from a vehicle without being obvious. A car that parks and sits with someone inside watching a house is noticeable and suspicious. So you walk. You pretend to be someone out for exercise or someone who lives in the neighborhood. But if you do not actually belong there, if you are not familiar with local norms, if you are focused on observing rather than actually exercising, residents sometimes notice. The timing that Meister described, weeks leading up to her disappearance, fits with other evidence of extended planning that we have discussed in previous coverage. Google Trends data showed searches for Nancy's address going back months. Doorbell camera images reportedly include footage from a prior reconnaissance visit. The January 11th date appeared multiple times in different contexts as potentially significant. All of that points to planning over weeks or months. A suspicious man walking the neighborhood during that same extended time frame adds another data point to the picture of someone studying the target over time. Whether the man Aldine Meister saw is the same person who appears in the FBI doorbell footage from February 1st is unknown. The doorbell footage shows a masked individual, so direct visual comparison is impossible. Whether that man is connected to any of the 12 vehicles captured on the back road, camera is unknown. But he represents another observation of behavior that struck a resident as unusual and worth noting during the weeks before Nancy was taken. Second significant detail from the Fox News article. Neighbors independently highlighted a white van parked on the block days before Nancy's disappearance. The word independently is important here. It suggests that multiple neighbors separately mentioned this white van without coordinating their statements, meaning it was noticeable enough that more than one person saw it, remembered it, and thought it was unusual or worth reporting. White vans occupy a particular place in public consciousness and in true crime awareness because they have been involved in numerous high-profile criminal cases over the years. They are extremely common vehicles for legitimate purposes. Contractors, Tradespeople, delivery services, utility workers all commonly use white vans for work. A white van parked in a residential neighborhood during daytime might be assumed to belong to someone doing work on a house. But that very commonness and that assumption of legitimacy also makes white vans useful for criminal purposes. They are anonymous. They blend in. They do not draw attention the way an unusual or distinctive vehicle might. The Fox News article does not specify exactly when days before means. Was it 2 days before Nancy disappeared? 5 days? A week? The vagueness makes it difficult to assess how significant the timing is. If the white van was there on January 30th, 1 day before Nancy was taken, that is very close temporal proximity. If it was there on January 25th, a week before, that is further removed but still within a reasonable surveillance period. Without specifics, we can note that neighbors observed and remembered a white van in the area in the days before the crime, but we cannot assess precise timing. The article also states that authorities have not raised any flags about suspicious vehicles they are searching for. This means that as of the February 26th publication date, law enforcement has not issued public bulletins or requests for information about white vans or any other specific vehicle description. That could mean several things. It could mean investigators have not identified any vehicle of interest and therefore have nothing specific to ask the public about. It could mean they have identified vehicles but are not sharing that information publicly for tactical reasons, because announcing what they are looking for could alert suspects or could generate overwhelming numbers of tips about vehicles that match general descriptions. Or it could mean the white van neighbors mentioned has been investigated and determined to be unconnected to the case. We simply do not know from the available public information what the status of the white van observation is. But it is documented. Neighbors saw it. They thought it was notable enough to mention, and it is part of the collection of observations and details from the neighborhood during the time period around Nancy's disappearance. Third significant detail: the investigation is entering what is described as a new phase, with the FBI and Pima County Sheriff's Office scaling back field presence and conducting final sweeps of the crime scene. Fox News reports that the FBI has been pulling resources out of Tucson, that investigators conducted one last sweep for evidence at Nancy's home this week, and that the intensive on-the-ground investigative presence is winding down. This does not mean the investigation is over. It does not mean they are giving up. It means the investigation is transitioning from one phase to another. Major investigations have predictable phases. The initial phase is intensive field work. When a crime is discovered, investigators flood the scene. They secure it to prevent contamination. They conduct detailed searches for physical evidence. They canvass the neighborhood, going door to door to interview residents. They request security camera footage from every home in the area. They document everything. They photograph and measure and collect. This phase is resource intensive. It requires large numbers of investigators physically present conducting searches and interviews and collections. That initial field phase typically lasts days to a few weeks, depending on the complexity of the scene and the amount of territory to cover. For Nancy's case, investigators have been conducting intensive field work for nearly 4 weeks since she disappeared on February 1st. They have searched her property multiple times. They have searched surrounding areas. They have knocked on doors throughout the Catalina foothills. They have collected camera footage from dozens or hundreds of neighbors. They have interviewed witnesses. They have followed up on thousands of tips. At some point, that initial intensive field work reaches a point of diminishing returns where additional searching is unlikely to produce new physical evidence. The scene has been processed thoroughly. The neighborhood has been canvassed completely. Camera footage that exists has been collected. Witnesses who have information have been interviewed. At that point, continuing to maintain large numbers of investigators on the ground becomes inefficient because the work that remains is not field work. It is analytical and laboratory work. The second phase of an investigation involves processing and analyzing everything that was collected during field work. DNA samples have to be extracted and analyzed. That happens in laboratories with specialized equipment and trained forensic scientists. It does not happen in the field. Camera footage has to be reviewed hour by hour, enhanced when necessary, vehicles identified when possible. That happens in offices with computers and video analysis software. Tips have to be reviewed, assessed for credibility, and followed up on. That happens through phone calls and computer searches and interviews that can be conducted from anywhere. Physical evidence collected from the scene has to be cataloged and examined. Fingerprints, if any were found, have to be processed and searched against databases. DNA results have to be entered into CODIS and potentially used for forensic genealogy if database searches fail. All of this work continues even as field presence decreases. The investigation is not slowing down. It is shifting to different types of work that require different resources. Sheriff Chris Nanos stated, according to Fox News, that DNA analysis could take up to a year. That is not an evasion or an excuse. That is a realistic timeline for complex forensic genetic work. DNA extraction from evidence takes time. DNA amplification and sequencing takes time. Database searches through CODIS take time. And if CODIS searches fail to find matches, forensic genealogy work, which involves uploading profiles to public genealogy databases, identifying genetic relatives, building family trees, and systematically narrowing down descendants to identify candidates, can take weeks or months depending on how close the relatives are and how complex the genealogical research becomes. The Golden State Killer case, which broke through forensic genealogy in 2018, and which has become the model for how this technique is used, took months of genealogy work after DNA was uploaded to GEDmatch before investigators identified Joseph DeAngelo as the suspect. Some cases have been solved more quickly, some have taken longer. A year is a reasonable upper bound for completing comprehensive DNA work, including forensic genealogy, if that becomes necessary. But while DNA work proceeds at the pace that science and laboratory capacity allows, other investigative threads continue. The 12 vehicles captured on back road camera footage can be investigated. Enhancement work to make license plates readable can proceed. Cross-referencing with other camera footage from the neighborhood can happen. The 40-name suspect list that has been reported in previous coverage continues to be worked. Background checks, interviews, and investigation of those individuals proceeds. Google search records, if they exist, and if they have been obtained through subpoenas, can be analyzed and correlated with other evidence. Tips continue to come in and be evaluated. So the transition from intensive field presence to analytical phase does not mean the investigation is ending or even slowing. It means the work is happening in laboratories and offices rather than on the ground in Tucson. The FBI agents who were stationed in Tucson conducting field work are returning to their regular assignments or being redeployed to other investigations that need their skills. But the analytical work, the laboratory work, the investigative work that does not require physical presence at the scene, all of that continues. Fourth significant detail, as of February 26th, 26 days after Nancy disappeared, no suspects have been publicly identified. Fox News states this explicitly. No one has been named, no one has been arrested, no one has been charged. This is significant because despite all the evidence that has been collected, despite the doorbell camera footage that clearly shows a suspect, despite DNA evidence from the glove, despite camera footage from neighbors, despite thousands of tips from the public, investigators have not publicly identified anyone as responsible. That could mean several things. It could mean investigators genuinely do not know who did this yet, that despite all their work, they have not been able to identify the person in the doorbell footage or connect the DNA to anyone or develop sufficient evidence pointing to a specific individual. That is possible. Not every case is solved quickly. Some take months or years to break. Or it could mean investigators have identified suspects privately but have not announced that identification publicly because they do not yet have sufficient evidence to charge, because announcing would compromise ongoing investigative efforts, or because they are building cases methodically before making arrests. In major investigations, identification often happens well before public announcement. Investigators develop suspects, investigate them thoroughly, build cases carefully, and only go public when they are ready to make arrests or when they have strategic reasons to announce. The absence of public identification does not necessarily mean absence of private identification. It means we as the public do not know yet who, if anyone, investigators have identified as responsible. And that information will become public when investigators are ready to share it or when arrests are made, whichever comes first. Fifth significant detail. Savannah Guthrie and her siblings are offering $1 million in reward money for Nancy's safe return. This is in addition to the $100,000 reward offered by the FBI and the $100,000 offered through Crime Stoppers, bringing total available rewards to $1.2 million. That is an enormous sum of money. Rewards at that level are used in the most serious cases where investigators believe financial motivation might cause someone who has information to come forward. $1 million is life-changing money for most people. Someone who knows something about this case but has been hesitant to come forward, perhaps because they are afraid, perhaps because they are protecting someone, perhaps because they do not want to get involved, might be motivated by $1 million to provide information. Someone who was paid to help with this crime but was not the primary perpetrator might be motivated to turn in the person who paid them. Someone who suspects a family member or friend but has been in denial might be pushed by the reward to accept that their suspicions are justified and to contact authorities. Rewards do not solve every case, but they create motivation where none existed before. And in a case like this where Nancy has been missing for nearly a month with no resolution, where her family is desperate for answers, offering the maximum possible financial incentive for information makes sense. Now let me synthesize all of this information to assess where the investigation actually stands, based on what we know publicly. Nancy Guthrie disappeared between approximately 1:47 a.m. when her doorbell camera was disabled and 2:28 a.m. when her pacemaker app disconnected from her phone. That 41-minute window is when the crime occurred at her home. During a 6-hour period that includes that window, from 12:30 a.m. to 6 a.m., 12 vehicles passed a camera on a back road 2.5 miles from her home. We do not know if any of those vehicles were on her street. We do not know if any are connected to the crime, but they are anomalous traffic on a road that normally has little traffic during those hours. During the weeks before Nancy disappeared, at least one neighbor saw a man walking in the area who struck her as suspicious because of his appearance and behavior. Days before she disappeared, neighbors noticed a white van parked in the area. Authorities have not publicly stated they are looking for any specific vehicle. The FBI has doorbell footage showing a masked suspect at Nancy's door on the night she was taken. DNA has been extracted from a glove found near her home and is being analyzed. A 40-name suspect list exists and is being investigated. Close to 40,000 tips have been received from the public. The investigation is transitioning from field work to analytical work. The FBI is scaling back physical presence in Tucson. One final sweep of Nancy's home has been conducted. DNA analysis is ongoing and could take significant time. No suspects have been publicly identified. $1.2 million in rewards are available for information. All of those pieces exist. Some are definitely connected to the crime, like the doorbell footage and the DNA evidence. Some might be connected, like the 12 vehicles and the suspicious man and the white van. Some might be entirely unrelated coincidences. The work of investigation is sorting through all of it, determining what connects and what does not, identifying patterns, following leads that develop from combining different pieces of information. The 12 vehicle footage provides investigators with new data to work with. They can attempt to identify vehicles through enhancement of the ring camera footage. They can look for the same vehicles appearing in other camera footage from other neighbors throughout the Catalina foothills. They can cross-reference vehicle descriptions against the suspect list and against residents of the area to see if any vehicles belong to people already under investigation or if any belong to people who should not have been in the area. They can investigate thoroughly any vehicle that appears multiple times in this footage or in combined footage from multiple cameras, because repeated presence is harder to explain through innocent reasons. They can attempt to track routes through the neighborhood by piecing together footage from multiple cameras showing the same vehicles at different times and locations. Will this footage lead to identification of Nancy's abductor? Possibly. If one of the vehicles is driven by someone who is already on the suspect list, that places that person in the general area during the relevant time frame. If one of the vehicles matches a description from witnesses. If enhancement reveals a license plate that traces to someone with connections to the case through other evidence. If routes reconstructed from multiple cameras show a vehicle approaching Nancy's street during the critical window. Any of those developments would advance the investigation significantly and potentially lead to identification. Or the footage might lead nowhere if all 12 vehicles belong to residents of that specific back road or to people with innocent and verifiable explanations for being in the area during those hours. That outcome is also possible and would not be unusual. Not every piece of evidence collected leads to breakthrough. Much of investigative work involves eliminating possibilities and narrowing focus. If the 12 vehicles can all be accounted for innocently, That information has value because it allows investigators to focus resources elsewhere. But the footage exists. It is being analyzed. It has been shared with investigators and with the public through Fox News reporting, and it represents another piece in what is clearly a complex investigation involving DNA forensics, digital evidence analysis, witness interviews, camera footage from multiple sources, and systematic methodical work to find Nancy Guthrie and identify who took her. True Crime Vault will continue covering every development in this case with factual accuracy and detailed analysis. Subscribe to this channel if you have not already. Turn on all notifications. Like this video to help it reach more people. Visit our channel to see all of our previous coverage, including comprehensive analysis of the doorbell camera footage, the Google search data, the DNA evidence, and every other aspect of this investigation. Comment below with your thoughts and your analysis. Do you think the traffic on the back road is significant? Do you think investigators will be able to identify vehicles from the footage? What would you focus on if you were working this case? And if you have information about Nancy Guthrie's disappearance, contact the FBI at 1-800-CALL-FBI. Contact the Pima County Sheriff's Department at 520-351-4900. Crime Stoppers accepts anonymous tips for people who prefer not to identify themselves. $1.2 million in total rewards are available for information that leads to finding Nancy or to the arrest and conviction of those responsible. That is an enormous amount of money being offered because this family desperately wants answers and wants Nancy home. Nancy Guthrie is 84 years old. She has been missing for 26 days. Her daughter Savannah and her other children are pleading for help. Investigators are working every available lead. The evidence is being processed. DNA analysis continues. Camera footage is being enhanced and analyzed. The 40-name suspect list is being investigated. Tips are being followed up on. The work continues every day even though the visible field presence has decreased. Somewhere in all of that evidence, in the DNA and the camera footage and the tips and the digital forensics and the witness observations, is the answer to what happened to Nancy Guthrie and who is responsible. The 12 vehicles on the back road might be part of that answer, or they might be coincidental traffic unrelated to the crime. But investigators will determine that through systematic work rather than through assumption. This investigation is not over. It is not cold. It is active. And True Crime Vault will be here covering it until Nancy is found and until those responsible are identified and brought to justice. Subscribe, like, comment, share, and if you know anything, contact authorities. Nancy deserves to be found. Her family deserves answers. And the investigation continues.